Hi everyone, I am Dr. Amit Kumar Singh, Assistant Professor at IIPA. I am going to talk about infrastructure and rural development in India. Friends, India is predominantly a rural country. As per the 2011 census, 68.8% of country's population was living in about 6.5 lakh villages of India. The United Nations population projections indicate that India will be largely rural till the year 2050, after which urban population is estimated to overtake rural population. So, the development of India will be very much dependent on the betterment of rural areas and rural people. But at present, if we talk about rural India's contribution in Indian economy, we find that over 54% of India's population is dependent on agriculture sector, but it contributes a mere 17% of country's GDP. Even today, around 25.7% of the rural population is living below poverty line. In fact, since independence, rural India has always lagged behind urban areas in the overall progress of the economy. However, looking at the vast geographical area, socio-cultural diversity and deep-rooted social stratification, the concentration of poverty is found mainly in 5 to 6 states of India. If we look at the location of these states, then we find that they are mainly located in central eastern part of the country, and all of them are characterized by agriculture, forest dominated economies, have low level of urbanization and lower access of financial institutions. To a large extent, most of them have some common elements. They are characterized with poor rural infrastructure. It is universally recognized that adequate and qualitative infrastructure services plays a crucial role in initiating and accelerating the process of economic development. If agriculture and industries are considered as the body and bones of an economy, infrastructure is its lifeline. If we talk about infrastructure, it is generally defined as the physical framework of facilities through which goods and services are provided to public. It also covers all those services and are required to create a modern economy. According to the few development economists, namely Regner, Rosenstein and Hirschman, infrastructure is umbrella term for several activities which are necessary for the development of directly productive activities such as industry, agriculture, trade and commerce. The World Development Report 1994 focuses on economic infrastructure and categorizes them in 3 groups. First one is the public utilities, in which the services such as power, telecommunications, piped water supply, sanitation and sewerage, solid waste collection and disposal and piped gas are included. Second one is the public works, in which roads and major dams and canal works for irrigation and drainage comes. And the other one is the transport sectors, in which the urban and inter-urban railways, urban transport, ports and waterways are and airports comes. In case of rural India, at present 4 critical infrastructures are important for their development. Let us discuss about them in brief. The first component is the physical connectivity of villages. For example, access to all-weather roads and 24/7 electricity supplies. In case of rural road, till 2003-04, only 8% of villages were connected with all-weather roads. But after the implementation of Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana in the year 2000, India has done reasonably well in constructing rural network in the entire country. And as per the Ministry of Rural Development, 97% of all the eligible and feasible habitats have been connected by all-weather roads under the scheme. Another important fact is that 50% of the all new road construction since 2014 has been constructed in just 5 states. For example, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, Odisha, Rajasthan and Uttar Pradesh, which is good for the country. But the northeastern states are still lagging behind. The 4 states where more than 50% of villages are unconnected are from northeastern states. Some studies suggest that new roads constructed under Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana have helped workers to gain access to non-agriculture jobs. In case of electricity, India has also done really well after the implementation of Sabhagya scheme or Pradhan Mantri Har Ghar Sahaj Bijli Yojana, which aimed at to provide electricity to all households in the country. Now government has declared that it has achieved universal village electrifications. In this scheme, a village is declared electrified if 10% of the households can access power along with public institutions such as schools, the Panchayat office, health centers, dispensaries and community centers. However, one concern with this scheme is that it did not cover small habitations such as hamlets. Second major issue is the lack of digital connectivity. For example, access to the quality internet. For this, the government has recently implemented its flagship programs such as Digital India, which envisions transforming the country into a digitally empowered society and knowledge economy. This program has four important pillars such as providing broadband connectivity at the village level and universal access to mobile connectivity, and professed roles such as faceless, paperless and cashless. At present, rural users outnumbered urban areas users by 10%. In that way, now rural India is bridging the digital gap which had existed earlier. But in spite of all the progress, the dream of digital and financial inclusion will remain unfulfilled unless the rural areas are provided proper infrastructure to access basic banking facilities. And poor internet connectivity is one of the reasons. A lot of people in rural areas also lack the necessary digital literacy to access the online services. It is worth noting that merely 16% of rural areas access internet for financial transactions compared to 44% of the urban areas. Third main issue is the lack of adequate and quality social services, for example, schools and hospitals in rural areas. As per the latest data, health infrastructure in rural India is still very poor. On an average, 4.3 villages have one sub-center and only one PHC exists for as many as 27 villages. Added to this, many health centers are also run without doctors, and in some cases treatment is done by unskilled healthcare workers. Similarly, the conditions of school education are poor in rural areas. Therefore, many of the rural youths are barely literate or are school dropouts. Hence, their lack of skill stands in the way of getting stable jobs in the towns and cities. This is because of the pathetic state of primary education in villages. Even though there are many government schemes for skill development, but their quality is questionable. Only few students from these institutions get the employment in the private sectors and service sectors, and most of the time they work as daily wages. We have to keep in mind that only improving the quality of education can produce a skilled workforce which can be hired by industries or service sectors. And fourth one is the lack of adequate agro infrastructure facilities such as cold storage, cooling chambers and refrigerated trucks of a certain minimum capacity to facilitate the transport of perishable items out of the local markets, mandis and beyond the local districts market across various regions. It can be said that rural areas are still not well linked with the rest of the economy through improved infrastructure and integrated markets. But if we look at the other Asian countries such as Indonesia, Malaysia and Thailand, they have been highly successful in integrating agriculture with the rest of the economy. Similarly, China has successfully integrated its agriculture sector with industrial sector by building up rural industrial infrastructure. In lieu of the above discussions, it can be said that the provisions of adequate infrastructures have collateral benefit for rural India as it will transform rural areas. Investments in rural infrastructure will not only create jobs for rural youth, but will also enhance the capital flow in rural economy and can bring in technology and will make way for greater efficiencies and productivity. Different empirical studies reports that there is a strong relationship among infrastructure, economic growth, rural development and poverty reductions. As per a NCAR study, the development of rural infrastructure could promote economic growth, improve the standard of living of the population and reduce the incidence of poverty by generating both farm and non-farm employment and earning opportunities, increasing productivity, providing access to basic goods and services, and improving the health and physical condition of people. Basically, the provisions of rural infrastructure is today the biggest challenge and the biggest opportunity for the country. Finally, I would like to finish my talk with Dr. V.K.R.B. Rao's statement about the importance of infrastructure. He said that the link between infrastructure and economic development is not a once for all affair. It is a continuous process, and progress in development has to be proceeded, accompanied and followed by progress in infrastructure, if we are to fulfill our declared objectives of generating a self-accelerating process of economic development. Friends, that's all for today. Thank you very much.